Hi, are you hyperventilating for everything that is going on in the world right now and upcoming holidays? Then don't, because on today's episode of Ask Nutritionist Deepa, we have Dr. Judy who is going to tell us why we shouldn't get our blood pressures high and how to relax and how to control our blood pressure through lifestyle changes. So, everybody, take a deep breath, relax a bit, put your feet up, and welcome Dr. Judy Brangman from North Carolina. So, Dr. Judy, welcome to Ask Nutritionist Deepa's podcast episode.
Hi, Deepa. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Okay, perfect. So, Dr. Judy is a founder of Newell Health and an internalist at a hospital in North Carolina. She is also known as plant-based MD on most of the social media platforms. So, uh, Dr. Judy, before we go on, I want to give you a chance to tell us your story as to what you do, why you do it, and how you got onto this path of plant-based and helping people.
Sure. So, I have been plant based for about 6 years. So I'm internal medicine. I'm working as a hospitalist. And my journey to holistic health really started when I was a lot younger. The family that I grew up in was primarily vegetarian or mostly plant based. And we were into natural remedies. My mom is a nurse, but we were always mindful of that. I grew up in Bermuda. So natural holistic health is something that's a part of our culture. And so when I came to the US to train, that was one difference that I noticed in my upbringing and the focus of the training. The training was very heavily on procedures and pharmaceuticals. So I took that knowledge and took that experience, but in the back of my mind, I was always seeking ways to actually prevent people from getting disease. A lot of medicine is reactive. So once the person's blood pressure is high, for example, then we prescribe medications, but we don't do anything before that point. We don't see the alarming signs going off before the diagnosis, such as the weight is going up, or they're eating unhealthy, or they're not exercising. So I've always been focused on finding the root cause, but I didn't know what it was until maybe 2011 when I discovered more about nutrition and specifically plant-based nutrition. And that was a real game changer for me because from that point onwards, I started to really dig into the research, and then I became plant-based myself. And then I started to discuss diet with all of my patients in a simple, non-judgmental way and ask them how many fruits and vegetables do they eat in a day. And across the board, I have yet to meet someone that I'm seeing that eats the recommended amount. So I knew that that is the problem for a lot of people. And I try and keep things very simple because in the nutrition space, it gets very crowded with a lot of noise and people try to make it way more complicated than it needs to be. So I try and bring, traditional allopathic medicine together with the focus on diet, lifestyle medicine. 2 years ago, I got my board certification in lifestyle medicine. So that's just another tool that I have in my toolbox to speak to my patients about their condition or their symptoms, chronic diseases. So instead of just prescribing medications, I'm also focused on getting to the root of it, whether it's their weight, whether it's their diet or their smoking habits or stress. So it's more of a holistic approach. And I know my patients like it, but I think it's also what medicine really needs so that we can really help people to be well from the inside out and not just addressing problems once or twice a
Superficially.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you for sharing that because it's always interesting to get the provider's perspective on why they are doing what they are doing because helping patient transition to or even having a conversation about plant-based diet is very people feel, oh my god, that's too radical.
Mm-hmm.
How are you? I mean, I have noticed, I have seen firsthand that people would take the information about chemotherapy, radiation, medication, not feeling so shocked, and you ask them to eat more fruits and vegetables, and they are like, oh my God, how am I going to do it? So you see that barrier, and it's very nice to see that more mainstream doctors
Mhm.
like you are kind of helping these people or spreading the message, as we all are trying to help this population with chronic disease condition. And today specifically we are going to talk about hypertension, because uh, hypertension is a silent killer, you know hits women of color more than anybody, and most of the lifestyle factors contribute to hypertension. So we know if the cause is lifestyle, then the remedy has to be rooted in lifestyle. So Judy, tell us a little bit about the blood pressure. Why should we check? Why should we care? And what do we and from your perspective, what do you should be doing?
So every adult should have a primary care doctor first and foremost, and you should be seeing that doctor regularly, because even though you don't feel sick or you don't have symptoms, something like blood pressure could be increasing and you won't know it until it's like very high, and at that point there's already some damage that's been done to your blood vessels or different parts of your body potentially. So that's the first thing that I always try and encourage people to make sure that they have a primary doctor. See them at least once a year for annual physicals to get your blood pressure checked. There's a lot of different factors that affect blood pressure, and I guess we can probably get into those more later. But blood pressure is one of those things that on the hospital side, we see people that come in with high blood pressure, or even in clinic, and they haven't seen a doctor in a long time, and their blood pressure is really high to the point they're at risk for getting a stroke. And the symptom they had was typically either something like blurry vision, or a vision change, or a ringing in their ear. And they wouldn't even know that it's a blood pressure. The first person they go to is the eye doctor. And then the eye doctor checks the blood pressure and then sends them to primary care. And so blood pressure, when it's that high, it's not suddenly that high. It's been getting that way for some time. So that's why it's important to get an annual physical, because you can detect problems before they become a problem.
Correct. Absolutely. And then as far as the numbers are concerned or levels are concerned, what are we aiming for? And the second part of that question is, a lot of people say, oh, I take medication for blood pressure. Does that exempt them from having the adverse effect of blood pressure?
Yeah, it's interesting when I ask patients, do they have high blood pressure? And they say no. And then you see they're on a blood pressure medicine.
Yes.
So there seems to be a discrepancy in between what we think of as, once you have a diagnosis, you have a diagnosis. If you're on medicine for it, that's because there's something underlying. So blood pressure, you want it to be less than 120/80. The top number is your systolic number. That's when the heart is pumping blood out of the heart. And the diastolic is the bottom number when it's sort of filling. So the top number, the systolic number, tends to go up even more than the diastolic when you're stressed or during periods of exercise. So it's normal for your blood pressure to go up when you're exercising or when you're stressed, but it shouldn't stay elevated. And also it's important to check it, if you're keeping track of your blood pressure, to check at the same time of the day, and then also check it in both arms, because they should be similar. If they're different in both arms, then that's a problem too.
That's good to know, that check it in both arms, which is interesting. What does the difference indicates?
So difference in blood pressure in different arms could be a problem with like your arteries or something like that, or like coarctation of the aorta, and other different conditions can be signified when there's a difference.
Okay, so I see a lot of patients with diabetes, And I try to explain to them that yes, you are here for diabetes, but we have to keep track of your blood pressure because high blood pressure is an insulin resistant state. When person's uh, blood pressure is high, usually their blood sugars are also high because the insulin is not being used effectively, and hence that keeps the blood sugar levels down. Now we have a perfect storm. We have high blood pressure and high blood sugars.
Well, you can
That's
have high blood pressure and not have diabetes.
correct. That's true
But
too. I mean, either
diabetes
way.
is like a cardiovascular risk factor. So with
Sure.
diabetes, you're probably more likely to get vascular issues
Correct.
like high blood pressure. But a lot of people um, may have high blood pressure in the absence of diabetes. I don't know what the
That's
statistics are as far as how many people
sure.
with diabetes have hypertension. Um,
Yeah. But either way,
it's
they
definitely more
both
prevalent
are
in
risk.
minorities and people of
Yes.
color.
That's what I wanted to ask you next is, are there any, is one gender better than other, or is doing better than other, or any particular ethnicity as a risk factor?
Yeah, people of color, minorities tend to have higher blood pressures. Multiple reasons can account for that.
Hmm.
Like we mentioned, stress is an important factor in blood pressure. So if you're
Hmm.
constantly in a state of stress, then
Hmm.
your blood pressure is going to be higher. And then also differences in body weight, dietary habits also play a role as well. But fortunately, your genetics is not the end story. So that's where lifestyle comes into play. No matter what your racial or ethnic background is, you can improve it with
Correct.
your diet.
Absolutely. And when it comes to genetics, I'm sure you have seen that pie chart from Harvard Medical University. Uh, I mean, Harvard University, that genetics is only 30%, and 20% is environment, and then your access to healthcare, and then rest is lifestyle factors. So as you can see, as much as we would like to blame the genetics, we can't blame it too much.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many other factors that we have are going to contribute to our chronic conditions. Okay, so
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how much control they have over whether they will get disease. A lot of people think it's just their genetics, and they sort of have this sort of like, oh well, it's gonna happen to me, so it doesn't matter what I eat kind of mindset or
yeah,
victim mindset almost, and it's just not it's not true.
that's right. Well, another misconception that I have seen among patients is that they say, well, my blood pressure is not sensitive to salt. What do you have to say? What do you have to say about that? Or why do they have this perception that they just have this blood pressure no matter what they do, it doesn't budge, so it has nothing to do with the added salt or the food, so to speak?
I know that black people tend to be more salt sensitive. So
Yes,
there are different medications that you want to prescribe for those individuals. But generally, most people, it is going to be advantageous for them to lower their salt intake,
correct.
typically to less than 2 grams a day, or even really better would be less than 1,500 grams per day. So
Yeah, you mean 1500
1,500
milligrams?
milligrams.
Yes. So those who are out there, 1500 milligrams is pretty much, I would say, one fourth of a teaspoon or so. Yeah, and then if we were to convert that into a fast food meal, it could be a burger and fries.
Mhm.
I believe burger and fries altogether has 1200 milligrams.
Probably, yeah. Anytime you
Okay.
eat out, it's gonna be a lot of salt. And if you look at the frozen dinners too,
Oh, yes.
the milligrams of salt is very high. Sometimes they have like 700 milligrams of sodium.
Correct. Absolutely. Those who are doing plant-based tend to use a lot of canned beans and lentils and peas. And those canned foods, if you are not careful with the label or reading the ingredients, you will notice a lot of canned beans have sodium chloride added to it. So I'm always asking patients to look for beans and lentils which are canned, which do not contain any salt.
Yeah, you can
Um,
buy ones that are salt free,
Correct.
and you can even like strain off the water
Water.
or liquid
Correct.
to get
Yeah,
some of it out.
that's
So I
right.
use the canned beans and I buy the salt free one.
Absolutely. And then there are vegetable broth is another one that I notice.
Hmm.
A lot of people use it in soups, and that sneaks in a lot of sodium. And seasonings, I forgot to mention something about seasoning. We are going to share a PDF showing you 6 different kinds of seasonings. You will get the link to this PDF towards the end of this presentation, because these seasonings are going to be our lifesavers, because these seasonings are very high in flavor. They contain nice anti-inflammatory, health, beneficial herbs and spices, and it's going to help you transition to a low sodium or no sodium, low salt or no salt foods. Because don't you agree, Dr. Judy, that a lot of people actually end up eating high salt food because they are almost addicted to that salt. They want, but if you replace that with flavor, it might help them.
Yeah, replacing it with seasoning and herbs, which is beneficial to health, is going to be really good. So using garlic, onions, turmeric, and then fresh herbs like basil, thyme, parsley, and different things like that. I don't use a lot of salt in my cooking, so my taste buds sort of have adjusted. And so when I go out to eat, oftentimes, and I'm sure you probably have noticed the same thing. If you go out to eat or you go to a friend's house, the food
Hmm.
tastes more salty than you're used to. And then when
That's
you
true.
cook for other people, they always say that it needs more salt.
Salt.
So I always have to tell people, you may have to add more salt to my food because to me it tastes salty enough, but to other people, it may need more salt. So I think salt is something that, like you mentioned, you can adjust to eating less salt for sure, but it's an adjustment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing what I have started noticing when I started cooking with vegetable broth, no oil, and very, moderate, almost low amount of salt, is
Mhm.
that I taste more flavor from the vegetables or the food itself.
Yeah,
I feel
exactly. You
that
can taste
salt
the food.
draws water out of the vegetables, and it draws the flavor out instead of
Mhm.
sealing it in. So it's definitely worth trying.
Yeah, and one tip that someone shared with me to not use as much salt when you're cooking is to not put salt in the food while it's cooking,
Yes,
but put it on at the end
at
so
the
that
end,
it's
yeah.
not absorbed into the food. It's more on the top of the food,
Yeah,
maybe just like a pinch of salt, and that way you're using less.
correct.
I know that works when you're cooking like pasta for sure, um, and
So
something else is.
that's a good tip, that to add salt towards the end and not during cooking, because it's, I think, as water evaporates, the salt is going to get even more concentrated in your food,
Mm-hmm.
because we are letting the water evaporate through the vapors. um, so Dr. Judy, if somebody walks into your office right now and is stressed, needs a huge lifestyle makeover, uh, doesn't have time to exercise, uh, doesn't know what to cook, how to cook, where to start. Uh, what would be one or two high level tips that you will give him or her to get started on this path?
So I would say diet probably is the most important thing that people can improve on if they want to be healthier, prevent disease, reverse certain diseases that can be. And that is probably going to give them the most bang for the buck, so to speak. Even without exercising, if you change your diet drastically, you'll see improvements. And once you change your diet to eat healthier, your weight is going to come off as well. So it's benefiting both areas.
Okay.
And secondly, I would say probably along the lines of diet probably is sleep. Yeah, I would say sleep too,
Okay.
because when people are not getting enough sleep, it affects your hunger hormones, so your leptin and ghrelin. So you're going to be more likely to crave um, unhealthy foods during the day, more likely to have cravings in general, and then so you're going to eat more. So sleep is one thing that is probably not really valued as much as it should be. And
Should
then
be.
also diet, I would say eating a healthy diet.
All right. So I am uh, pretty much going to be, advising, or the starting point is going to be diet and sleep and hydration. I would add hydration to that. um, the
Yeah, I was
DASH
gonna add
diet,
drinking water too, but I was like,
drinking
that's kind of
water.
on the diet. But yeah, a lot of people
Yeah,
drink empty calories and
yes,
carbohydrates by drinking sodas and juices,
that's
when they
true.
should just be drinking water.
Absolutely. Um, a lot of people may not know that one diet that has consistently shown to have health benefits is called as DASH diet, dietary approach to stop hypertension. Every year, DASH diet makes the number one on the chart of diet trends in terms of health benefits.
Hmm.
Many diets have come and gone, and but DASH diet, which predominantly focuses on, uh, I believe the recommendation now is like 6 to 9 or 7 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day.
Yeah.
More plant-based, obviously, more plant-based protein, such as beans and lentils, legumes, nut seeds, a lot of fiber, and pretty much low salt or no salt. So really, it's not a new concept. It's not something new that we are asking people to do. DASH diet has a very solid track record.
Yeah.
And I tell people that even if they start adding extra 1 cup, whatever they are doing, add extra 1 cup of vegetables to that, it's still going to take them in right direction.
Yeah, yeah, that's the start. Because there's some people that say that they don't like to eat vegetables, or you see people that eat meals without vegetables. So a simple rule of thumb is to every time that you eat and fix your plate, you should have vegetables on it. And at least half the plate should be mostly vegetables, but lunch and dinner, at least half the plate should be vegetables. Breakfast, I tend to eat fruit, but at least half my plate is consisting of fruit and vegetables. That way, I'm ensuring that I'm getting enough of my vitamins, fiber, and antioxidants and nutrients.
That's correct, because it's the nutrients like vitamin A and C and fiber and antioxidants from the vegetable group is going to help with that vasodilation, which means the arteries opening up, you can say, or relaxing, to carry the blood to our organs, specifically heart. And that's one of the mechanism why plant-based helps, is because it's so rich in nutrients, which helps with our vascular health, the health of the arteries and veins. So there's definitely a huge benefit to uh, to eating more plant-based diet for hypertension. Okay, so a lot of stress is happening around us for a variety of reasons. Holidays are coming up, and I saw a trend reported that alcohol consumption is going up as well. So, what is your opinion about alcohol and hypertension?
So alcohol definitely can raise the blood pressure, and there really is no strong reason to consume alcohol on a regular basis. I know the guidelines say less than a certain number of drinks for women and for men as well, but alcohol can contribute to general sense of inflammation in your body. It can raise your blood pressure. So it's one of those things that I really advise my patients and clients to avoid if they can. I know that there are some who say that, red wine has resveratrol in it, so it's good to drink
Yeah.
it. But, you can, they actually now have, I think in a supplement form, they have their resveratrol extracted, and it comes from grapes. So I suppose you can eat a lot of grapes.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that that benefit outweighs the risk of consuming alcohol, which has other harmful effects on the body. So,
Absolutely. Not to mention alcohol getting converted into fat and weight gain.
mm-hmm.
And all
Yeah,
the salty snack people end up eating with alcohol.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
so it's a vicious cycle. Well, this has been very informative. And Dr. Judy, every episode of Ask Nutritionist Deepa, we usually give out a recipe or a favorite food or item that our guest likes to share. If I were to ask you, what's your favorite low salt mm, recipe related tip, or if you have any recipe ideas, food ideas for us and
I
my
tend to
audience
like
and our audience?
Yeah, I tend to like to use sweet potatoes a lot. I just use sweet
Okay.
potatoes like all the time. I roast them, and I like Buddha bowls. It's basically like a complete meal. I have a green at the bottom,
Yeah.
quinoa, and then I put sweet potatoes that are roasted, diced on there with
Hmm.
some either corn or black beans, and then I will saute tofu with whatever seasoning that I am
Hmm.
feeling in that day, and then I
Hmm.
have a bowl. And I don't even really necessarily put a sauce on top of it, but that's what I like to use. And with I have a meal planner actually that my clients and patients have access to. It has over
Hmm.
3,000 plant-based recipes and meals
Perfect.
that I, offer with my clients because I realize that food is important, and one of the barriers that people have is time and recipes.
Correct.
So if you see me as a patient, then you will get access to my meal planner. And so, I see patients for help with blood pressure. People want to take less medications. That's basically what I see people for: diabetes, high blood pressure, and then also for weight loss.
Okay, perfect. So, where can our audience find you?
So they can find me on all social media platforms at the Plant Based MD. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then my website is theplantbasedmd.com. You can see my list of services with my company, Newell Health. You can send me a message on there. I would love to connect with you all and help you achieve your health goals. I'm located in North Carolina, so currently I'm only taking clients in North Carolina. But the
Okay.
beauty of it is that with the virtual world and whatnot, that potentially will be expanding in the near future.
That's fantastic because we need a lot of providers because we have a lot of patients around us, and this needs a systemic change. And I'm glad you are part of the network uh, and one of the key stakeholders who is helping with this approach of eating plant based for prevention and treatment of any chronic disease, but specifically hypertension. I want to thank you, Dr. Judy, for joining me and sharing your knowledge and insight. I am aware that you are planning to have a summit focusing on variety of speakers coming together and discussing lot of lifestyle nutrition, lifestyle medicine type of topics. We all are looking forward to it. When you tell us a little bit about that so that our audience will be looking for it.
Well, I just had a summit. It was in
Okay.
September, the Reclaim Your Health Summit. It was the first year that we had it. We had
Hmm.
an amazing response. The feedback was amazing. We had over
Hmm.
3,000 people sign up for it. And so we're
Okay.
planning to do it again next summer as
Okay.
well. And
Okay.
definitely looking forward to that. If you sign up to my email list, on my website. You get my free plant-based wellness guide, and then you'll be notified when we do the next summit
Perfect.
for the audience.
Again, that's thank you for sharing that information. We will stay tuned, and thank you everyone for hanging in here with us, and hope you will download the PDF on seasonings. Same with Dr. Judy's patient. Please urge your patient to download this PDF. It's a collection of nice seasonings, 6 seasonings that they can use, and everybody have a good evening and rest of the week. And we will see you all next time in Nutritionist Deepa's Ask Nutritionist Deepa's podcast and Facebook Lives. So thank you and good night.
Good night.